Going live, we're live. Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the infamous SkyWire. I am here along with my buddies, Margarita, Katrina, Dave Moore. Hey Dave. And our beautiful couple, Heidi and Mark. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How's everybody doing? Everybody here? So we're all having some kind of issues. I have my lower third, but everybody else doesn't. So as we go forward in our show today, why doesn't everybody just, in the beginning, just because you don't have your lower third, how about identifying who you are? So everyone that is listening and will be listening will have an idea of at least who you are, and then we'll do it again for those of our listeners who come in a little bit later. So if you're watching us live, cool, comment with us, tell us what's going on in your life. We're allowing listening to be our guide, and it's going to take us on this ride, and we're going to see what it brought us all this week, how we listened. And if you're tuning in to the replay, that's great too. We're happy to have you whenever, wherever you show up, and you can certainly communicate with us anytime because we are live. No matter where we are, we're live. So let's start with Heidi and Mark. Why don't you tell everybody who you are and where you are?
Oh, sure. Hello, I'm Mark, and I'm in Italy with Heidi. I've been here about 3.5 years now, and I'm here because she wouldn't come to the U.S., basically. So, and we do various activities. One of them is nearly a weekly appearance here, and we, of course, have our own shows on always on Friday afternoon, and big one coming up tomorrow. And you have some of that you do on your own also.
Yes, together with Margarita, who is near us, somewhere there. We do hang out on Connections, and we just came from a wonderful session with Cherie. What else is to say? Nothing. Go over. Only that the lower third doesn't work neither for us. So it's only you. You have the exception.
I don't know how that happened because usually I can't get it there. So today is that day. So thank you both for being here as always. And we have Dave Moore. Tell everybody who you are, Dave. And then we also, please identify. If you're out here, you're listening, let us know who you are because we'd like to say hi to you. So Dave, who is our Dave?
Who is our Dave? Well, my name's David Moore, and I'm the owner of HP Transformation, a motivational self-awareness company. And we travel the world leaving a wake of people who have become in touch with themselves and the person they were destined to be. That's what we do. Good to be here.
Good to see you here too, because I know you were kind of like a maybe. So I'm glad your maybe turned into a yes.
It's unusual for me to be a maybe, but
no, you're
it was
usually
down to the traffic. So
absolutely. All right, good. And Katrina, sweet Katrina.
Hi there. It's good to be back. I haven't been able to hang out with you guys in a while. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Katrina. My website is Creative Katrina, and I'm an empath, intuitive, and writer. And I help people get through their creative blocks and work on personal development. And I also have a podcast called Flirting with Enlightenment that I do with one of our former panelists, Jamie McConaughey, who is a former Hindu monk. So that's really fun. I think just podcasting in general is a really good time. So that's what I'm up to these days.
And she's so impressive with her new mic. You look like a podcaster.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, usually it's kind of hidden in the corner. I finally brought it closer to my face. So unfortunately, without the lower third, you guys can see it. But
it's interesting you say that because years ago, when women would be doing TV, they would hide if they were pregnant. They would hide behind a microphone or a basket of flowers. And so it's great that we're not hiding anything anymore, right?
Yes.
That's cool. Well, it's cool. So thank you for being here. Now, beautiful Margarita. Tell everybody about you.
Okay. Trying to find my mute button was not so easy. So I am an instant drawing coach right now because we have a course in instant drawing, and here I show exactly what we're going to do today. And My name is Margarita Cristalotis, and I'm an intuitive healer, mentor, and helping stressed women to overcome their challenges in their life and discover their purpose in life and business. So I do healing transformation for people. And as you can see, I just love drawing. And I'm going to listen to you today.
Cool. Well, we're going to all be listening and gathering up what we've listened to. So this show, this mastermind, this group, this time in our lives is very special. And this particular idea of coming together and sharing what we've listened to and having a safe space to explore the messages, the signs, the meaning, the ideas, whatever it is that we hear during the week. And so, sometimes we have topics and we explore a word, we explore an action, an idea, whatever. But now we're just keeping it open as listening is and seeing what we each can learn from each other. So we'd love to hear from all of you that are listening as well to what your week has brought you and how have you processed it. What has your listening identified for you? So I'd love to go through our panel and see what their week's been like and how their listening has either, how has it gotten sharper, and what have you picked up from your week? So how about if we start with Katrina today?
I'm in the hot seat, first thing.
Well, you're not hiding, so what the heck?
That's true, right? Right, I'm all naked out here. I would say that what's been really interesting for me is that I write a weekly blog post. And this week I wrote about how a lot of times when we're building or we're creating something that we put a lot of emphasis on how that creativity is going to pay off. And putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to make something pay off. And it's funny because intuitively I just get an idea to write about a blog post, and I didn't really realize that I needed to write that blog post for me. Because I feel that sometimes when I'm trying to build things for my own business, I'm not necessarily listening to the fact that it takes divine timing. There is a rhythm and a pattern to what we have to do, and all those pieces fit together when the flow is supposed to go, right? So here I'm usually helping other people with those things when I was actually challenged with that thing myself. And I think it takes a little bit of surrender. It takes a little bit of not just mindfulness, but really tuning in and saying, what's my hurry? Why is it that I feel like things need to be different than they are, and sort of looking at what that really means and listening deeper within to what that message is. And for me, I think it was really about there's a building stage and you can't always see how the pieces are going to come together, and it's okay to be in that building stage for a while. That's why they put those big tarps over buildings. You can't see what's going on inside. And I've been listening to that a little bit this week and noticing when I'm jumping ahead to the payoff part versus really being present and listening to what either nature is telling me or what my intuition is sort of guiding me to do. And definitely it was a reminder that I feel first, right? As an empath, that's generally my go-to thing. But when you're feeling all the time, you also need a little bit of structure to build those pieces around. And I can't always just say, hey, I feel this way, I should go do this. Right, kind of build that structure part too. So that's what it came up for me this week specifically in listening is what's that structure, and follow your path where you're guided, but don't put too much pressure.
I love what you said because that's not exactly my words, but very much of my sentiment in how I have been observing my world through agendas. How I have come to things with something particular in mind that I want to get from it or give to it. And I've come to more and more things just open, waiting for things to come, and then listening to what I'm supposed to do with it. And because of that, it's been very interesting. I've noticed I've made more connections, and I'm not there waiting to tell somebody or share with somebody what I think about where they are or where they, are, like you just said, our timing is different, right? Timing is different. So it's my time might, I might hear something somebody else doesn't hear, but it may not be up to me to tell them. And I want to, and there's a very good friend of mine in the comments, Lucetta, and I want to welcome her today. And I want to tell you, I sent you the link to get into this show as well, Lucetta. So if you'd like to come in, we'd love to have you. So just look for it and come in. If not, I give it to you again. But if you don't want to come, that's fine. Love that you're here. So thank you, Katrina, for sharing. That's really great. So who wants to go next?
Me.
Ed.
Okay, yeah. When I read about the kind of listening we'd be talking about today, I almost immediately had a realization that I'd been doing some really close listening to my cat, our cat. He unfortunately is very, very, very ill and has not fed himself for almost a month now. And despite our efforts and our ministrations and our hopes in trying this and trying that, he is declining and seems to be very close to the end. So it's a time for reflection, thinking about life and death, the difference between animal life with their different understanding of death, if they have any understanding of it, and our own, and seeing how the relationship between the animals that we have here, we have, 5, 6 cats, depending on whether you count all the outside ones as cats, our cats, and one dog. And their relationships change with each change in the population. The one who was on top gets challenged by a newcomer, accepts the reduced stature, but doesn't forget. The body remembers. And these animals, they start a slow decline. And looking back, we can see that this has taken, well, the biggest change in the population has been when I came here 3.5 years ago. And that upset the hierarchy vis-a-vis, Mistress Heidi in the household, And these animals, they react to all these changes. They have to adjust. And we've seen kings dethroned, the rise of new princes, the dog who is the policeman for the entire community. What happens when that dog died? The cat that had adopted the dog as its patron was kicked out of the community because she was such a bitch. And we haven't seen her for months now. And all of these things happen without conscious activity on the part of these animals. The same things that we see in human society, but with lots of words, lots of ideas, lots of rationalization, etc., going on. But nonetheless, the waves come and the waves go. And it's just a really enlightening to understand finally that these animals have that level of life going on with them also. It's not that different from our own. It's not verbal, it's not conscious thought, but it's the same stuff. And that's what I've been listening to. It's been most kind of melancholy but sweet at the same time. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Mark. Thank you for bringing us there with you. That's what listening does too. Like, he's there, and then we can listen to him and be brought right into a similar experience. Thank you.
Yeah, I can continue because my listening goes also into existence and what does it want. For instance, don't touch. Okay. No, when he touches the microphone, it makes bomb. So, for instance, the listening, it shows me all my insecurities. And we were talking before about intuition and things in the past show with Margarita. I'm trying to listen into this animal. What does it want from me? He with very much effort came up, jumped on our bed. He had never done that before. So, does he want that I help him to I don't give him really medicine, but at least some food? Does he want it? He didn't refuse it. So, this sort of listening, there are no words, but it's also difficult to understand. And my understanding then is that I have words and have thoughts, so I think, oh, maybe this is wrong, or maybe I should do that, and maybe I should do that. And I feel this space of uncertainty, complete uncertainty. I try to listen into this animal, but I don't really have the answer. I'm fine if he is dying. I thought for 4 or 5 weeks that he would be dead immediately. But I also very grateful for the relationship which has been created when he jumped, I think today it's difficult, on our knees and wanted to be nearby and wants to be, protected. And to be there for an animal in this way, and even comes back to me then the thought, humans are left so alone in these last days and last weeks. So we really need, this. The animal showed it. The animal, today, he slept in his armpit, so... And I wanted only to come to this point that I try to listen, but with my mind interfering, I'm really not sure what is the right thing to do.
So what came to me was how even parents sometimes just cannot tell their children everything to do. We just have to figure it out on our own, or they have to figure it out on their own. That's empowering our children. That's sometimes in businesses, that's leadership. We just have to empower each other to go do what we have to do. And in this regard, because I felt a similar experience when I was explaining it last week with the deaths that I had, right? I didn't have the answers of how to behave, what to do. I'm still working it through. But you just explained it, and you helped me identify very clearly how I was feeling as well, and how I am still feeling, and how I have to take a chance, or I have to ask somebody else's opinion, or I have to maybe take some action, or maybe listen deeper. I don't know, listen deeper to do something else, to find out, and then to use my gut. Yeah.
When you mentioned your children, I think this is right when they have a certain age. But I was considering today, if you have a baby and it's really very ill, and you are in this situation. It's hard and mind-blowing and everything together. If you don't really know what to do, how to do, and I realized that I asked the kitty to tell me what I shall do. I mean, this is absurd. I mean, how can this little being really know what I need to do? It's just anyway.
We listen.
We listen and try to understand, but I think we have to live with the uncertainty that there is no clear answer.
Maybe that's what we all have to do sometimes, is that we're not ready for an answer, or the answer isn't ready for us. I don't know. That was beautiful. And Dave, thank you so much for helping Lucetta come in. Hey, I know you've been listening. This is a very dear friend, Lucetta. So she said she's coming in today, and she did. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's cool. So I'm gonna ask you to share too, but Margarita had her hand up right before Mark did. So I wanted to just go right to her and say, kind of like, so what's come up for you?
Well, it's the time of stillness. Listening to the time of stillness in my mind, around me. I mean, the distractions and the questions and the influences on the internet and all of these, it's like massive right now. It's like coming like two big bodies just like moving like this. And then, of course, we can't have our lower third working because it's like the internet is like a big beast who is just morphing into something new. But first, the old beast has to die, right? The old being, we have to let go of it. And then this is the death throes that is transforming and getting, you know, the phoenix to be reborn from its own ashes. And I feel that this week has been like that. I'm not finished yet. Probably gonna take another few days. But I'm learning to actually, like Mark said, to listen. And when he talked about the cat, I remember my father. That was in 1995 or something. When he died, I was living here in Canada and he was in Sweden, and I couldn't reach him on the phone even, but 2 days before he died, I finally got hearing him, and he could hardly talk. But you know, to listen to his voice, even though he couldn't talk very well, was the last memory I've had of him, right? And my opinion and my thoughts about him, he was a doctor, changed so radically on the funeral when I saw there's so many people. It was 400 people there. I couldn't imagine it, you know. There was 400 people. That was in November, and there was like a storm outside. The church was like glass windows all out to a forest, and then the snow was going like this back and forth. And I was thinking, this is something like that that's happening for me, that there is a huge transformation happening. And new people and new circumstances are coming up constantly. And in the meanwhile, there is a storm out there that is like that internet beast that moving. And so the only thing I can do is to actually be in my heart and then listening to that, and just accept it. I mean, Heidi says, what shall I do with the cat? I think just being there, having your heart open and embracing that situation, that would make a huge difference for your cat and anyone. It doesn't need words or action. It's just like being there, feeling the love for the other person. That's was my takeaway for this week.
I'm hearing so much of all your sensitivities, and so right on the mark. And Margarita, what you just said as far as, you know, observing, listening to the old leaving and the new coming, it takes such talent, such keen listening to listen to the shift and to see even the positive shifts coming in the face of darkness. It takes great talent. So I want you very much to thank you for that, and I really appreciate what you just said also to Heidi and Mark, because I think that when you have no other answer, we're looking sometimes for that specific logical thing, what rings true is just plain love, right? So that was great. And you said we're coming to you. I want everybody to say hello to you, but I'm going to save a little bit. I want to save a little more time for you. So hold on. I just want Dave to have his moment or two, and then we're going to come right to Lucette, and then everybody gets to meet you. So Dave.
Well, this last week, I've had some sort of challenge because I mentioned it on a Hangout or Blab or something the other day. I've got this program that I recorded that I did in Zurich, and I played it back, and I had to listen to myself for like 3 days. And I hate looking at myself on film, and I hate listening to myself. So it was a bit of a challenge. But I condensed it down to the salient points to a 10 CD pack. Now, I use this as the basis to train somebody to run my program so that I don't have to do them all. Not because I don't like to, but it's just that I'd like it to work without me having to do it. It's not me, it's the program. So he went away for 3 weeks and learned with the notes and everything that I said. And he said to me, this is going to be just like you're in the room doing this. So I sat there and he started, and after an hour I stopped him. I said, I don't get what you mean when you said. He said, but that's what you said. And I realized that listening really intently to somebody else saying what you have said can sometimes lead to there being a mismatch in the message. It works in my head when I say it. And when somebody else repeats it, it didn't work for me. And it's like me telling you a joke, everybody laughs, and then you tell somebody the joke and they go, huh? I don't get it. It's sometimes it gets lost. Sometimes it's like watching a foreign movie with the wrong subtitles. It doesn't match at all. And I realized that when we really listen to somebody, we listen in a way that we understand it. We sort of self-decipher what they're saying. I went into that expecting just to hear me back again, and it didn't register well. And I thought, how do people get this? Because I wrote it, he's repeating what I said, and yet it doesn't ring as true to me as it did when I said it. And it's a very strange thing that when we listen to somebody, it's not so much the words that they're using, it's what they're not saying. And it can be their tonality, it can be their inflection on some words, their accent. And it really sort of hit home to me why in the training I repeat 2 or 3 times the same thing, but in 3 different ways. It's so that it's because if I say it one way, only a percentage of people will get it. Then I say it a different way, the percentage of people who've got it go, yeah, I get it. Another percentage of people will say, oh, that's what you meant. And another percentage of people will say, I still don't get it. And then when you repeat it again, suddenly everybody has got it. So what works for one person doesn't work for another. And the strange reality was that what I said, somebody repeating it, didn't work for me. And so it really makes me question whether or not just recording something or saying something works on all levels for all people. I think the repeating and the nested loops and everything that we do in seminars is the key. That it's a reductive training that I do works. The actual message, the straightforward message, doesn't. That was really a thing that I picked up in the last week and has made me realise that what somebody is saying to me sometimes, with the best will in the world, I may not get their point. So I ask them to repeat it, and quite naturally they repeat it and embellish it and say it in a slightly different way, and then I really do understand what they mean, because it's listening not to hear, but listening to understand.
Well, and I would say also, you're coming to it with feelings attached. And your feelings, you have ownership, and your feelings and your enthusiasm is something that you're experiencing as you share your message as well. And you're hearing that. And it's possible that what just means that, we can't mimic each other. We have to be our own expression of something. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing for a lot of us to think about because, we are up here, people are taking ideas from this and ideas from that, and without applying your emotion to it, it may not do the same.
It's an amazing thing when you
Yeah.
when you understand it and you actually do it and say that again. They'll say it slightly different. I gave what we used to call in sales, when I did sales training for people, is to get what's called the talking dog look. And I gave the talking dog look to Bruce, the guy that works for me, and he stopped and he said, "Well, what?" Because it was quite. I thought, I don't get this. What is it you mean by that? And then he said it, and I got it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
it's like, and like I see that. I hear myself saying sometimes, why do I want to do something that somebody else is already doing? And then I say to myself, well, I'm going to deliver it differently. I'm going to. There's not that many unique things out here, really, whether we're coaching with this or that, but my way of doing it is going to be different. So that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So thanks, Dave, for bringing that up because it does give me a lot of food for thought as well. And so now, everybody, welcome Lucetta. It's nice to have you here. Hey.
Thank you for having me.
So now you've been you were listening. Not being in the show, now you're in the show, and so I don't know if you heard everything, but we usually come here and pick a certain topic ahead of time, a quote or this or that, whatever, and then we just get into it. So now we're kind of talking about things that go on in our lives, and everybody's sharing, and then anybody can interrupt also. So if anybody has anything that they want to interrupt about what they've already heard or comment, please feel free to do that. But I'd love you to hear Lucetta and who she is, and what have you either observed from being here now, or is there something in your life that you've been listening to and piecing things together that is something that you want to share, because that's how we all learn from each other. So take it away, Lucetta.
Well, thank you so much. I am Lucetta Zaytoun, and I am a certified life and authentic leadership coach. So a colleague of Marilyn's, and my mission is to banish self-doubt from the planet. Just a little tiny mission, and I do that by encouraging people to take courageous acts in their life. Even just like a baby step at a time. But my own particular listening that has been happening in the last week is. I am in the process of writing a book. It's a very intimate memoir, and I have kind of sequestered myself and my time, with the exception of this show. I wasn't going to miss it. Being like on my own, in my heart and in my head, and I have really had to listen to my heart and my passion to get this message out, and listen to my heart and grab hold of that passion when I have these fears about being this vulnerable in print. And I have really had to dig deep and listen, like with a really strong ear, to what my heart is saying to me, to push past some of those fears and continue this venture. So that's where I've been listening in the last week, to my own heart. But one other thing I'd like to share, another thing that came up for me, as Dave was talking about how we listen, is that often when we're listening to another person, we're not really listening to hear them, we're listening to respond. Because while they're actually talking, our brains are thinking about the answer or what we're going to say to them. And so I just put it out here for us to, I long for the world to stop listening to respond, but listen to really listen, and what that does for you when you live in the present moment. of truly hearing what someone else says. That's just my input off the cuff.
Yeah, you're right on, and I appreciate that. And I think you and Katrina and Mark and Heidi and Mark and Margarita would certainly agree with all the work that everybody does. That you're right on. And Katrina's shaking her head, I'm sure, because she's one of our creative sparks. That what you're doing, that you're listening to, removing yourself from to get this done. You have to do. You have to do. And you're absolutely right. And as far as responding, that's exactly right, because that's exactly what I was talking about with my agenda. That's a response. And I have really honed that in and really heard myself coming with something. And now I'm just like, let me just see what comes. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Can I just mention very quickly one thing? Taking that lead, as you said, like I said, you shouldn't listen to hear, you should listen to understand. And the only way that you can understand somebody is by giving them room to speak and not think about what you're going to say next. It's to evaluate everything that they're saying and then come up with either an answer or some form of idea or a question again that might bring out some more information. And I said in one of the other shows that we did, when I'm on stage and there's a few hundred people there, I don't have any issue whatsoever when somebody asks a question to stand there for 30 or 40 seconds, a minute sometimes, thinking about how I'm going to answer them. And it's uncomfortable to people in the audience, but in the first day it's meant to be uncomfortable because they're going to come in touch with the real them. And so when they're sort of like, what's happening? What's he doing? It's because I'm standing there thinking. Because this question that somebody has taken time to formulate and work on and structure and frame in such a way that they can really get their point across, I shouldn't be thinking about something else while they're asking me. And so I wait for them to finish and then I go through a thought process. If it's a standard question, it's very easy to answer, but if it's something personal to them, I do that in front of people. People are a little bit, what else going on here? But the thing is, I know that not only will I give that person an answer that they're going to find valid and is going to be relevant and is going to help them because I've completely understood their situation. The other people are going to see me going through a thought process and how I come to that conclusion. And how you come to a conclusion is sometimes more helpful to you, to the other person, than the answer you give to a third party, because they think, oh, that's how he does it. That's how she does it. That's how they come to those answers. Rather than say, yes, your answer is number 27, paragraph 5 of my latest book. What it is.
And we know you could do that too, right, Dave?
Oh, I don't know.
We know you could do that too, I'm sure. So,
but that to me is the key.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing about listening, is that you are listening and jumping around to what might be necessary in whatever communication we're involved with. But so much of listening is not doing anything. So much of it is just, right?
Yeah, well, no, it was funny because what popped into my head, just as you were saying that, Marilyn, is the spectrum of listening. Like every single one of us, there's a dynamic spectrum of listening, and we're all popping up at different parts of it this week for our own personal reasons. And that's what's so interesting when we're demonstrating all of that, because at any given moment, we really can do all of them. It's just that at certain situations in our lives, there's something that's happening that's allowing us to just peek in and tune into certain aspects of that a little bit more finely. Like when Margarita was saying that you're listening not only to what needs to go, that release point, but listening to what's next, and balancing those is tricky. But that's the same thing as listening to, okay, what's not being said. My animal can't communicate with me in the way that I'm used to, so how can I listen? Or are the little pieces in life where I'm sharing the things that I say out into the world, how are people going to receive that and listen to that and hear my message? So especially when you're working on a book and really tuning into yourself, like, what is it that you want to say? So what I really like is the dynamic exploration of listening that everyone had this week, because I think that we all kind of popped in at a different part of the spectrum to sort of demonstrate, like, yes, at any given time we could be at a different part of that, and I could be in Heidi and Mark's spot, or Margarita's spot, or Dave's spot, or Lucetta's. That's the cool part.
So well said. So well said. And listening, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, so listening at times is so easy, and other times it isn't so easy, and yet it's so easy. So who has a comment? Lucetta, you're smiling. Are you
Well,
on?
I just
Yeah.
felt like that was quite profound. It is easy,
Katrina.
and it isn't easy, yet it is easy. Really, it is easy. All you have to do is just sit there, and the sound goes into your ears. In that regard, it is easy. But where it becomes not easy sometimes is what's going on in our head, and how we're processing what's going into those ears that makes it not easy to listen, especially if it's something that we don't really want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a hard truth. Maybe it's something that we're not ready to process.
Mm-hmm.
And so at times listening can be hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I was smiling because what you said was really profound.
Oh, thanks. And I guess, the more we listen, the easier maybe, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I say things and I think I'm right, and then to myself, right for me, and then I'm hearing myself and I'm going, well, then again, I'm not so sure. Because as I'm listening, I begin to question what it is, because there's no definitive answer. I could say with the processing, the listening does help the processing. It helps ease up the processing. But at the same time, the deeper you go into listening, the deeper the processing. So maybe there's not as many things to process, but what you're processing is deeper. And that is even more complicated. So, Mark, Heidi?
Yeah. I want to go back to something Lucetta said her first time speaking, and she was mentioning that so much of our time we can spend not listening but preparing our response. And of course that is one thing we can do. And I just noticed that I haven't been preparing anything. And that feels so different, And then just before she spoke the second time, there was a little pause where nobody was saying anything, but I immediately felt an urge to jump in and fill the dead space, even though I didn't have any particular motivation for saying anything other than what I just reported as my observation. And I'm thinking that in some company, it's just a feeling that arises because of the vibrations in the group, that you want to jump up and be heard, you want to respond to what they're saying, because that's the way that group operates. Everybody is, trying to be number one. It's also a quite male thing to do, I think, but not exclusively male. And it often drives me away from all male company. Ugh, I don't want to argue about this. But it's so nice to be here today and just be able to hear what everyone says. It doesn't mean I have to have an opinion about what everyone is saying, or even respond to what everyone is saying. and it's a very quiet feeling inside that I'm really savoring at the moment. Thank you.
You know, it's an interesting observation you said about that time when there was nothing said, because that is to me, there was no pre-thinking of whatever anybody else was saying to fill up that space. There was nothing. I mean, that was really noticeable from what you just said, that there was that space. Nobody was pre-ready with anything. And sometimes I jump in because I'm moderating. But that was a very, very good observation. So thank you for bringing that up, because that was exactly what, you know. It's so interesting how so sometimes we come up with something so profound and we demo it in that second, and we don't even realize we're doing it. How many times does that happen? Heidi?
I haven't thought of anything. So. But I can say something, and exactly what we were talking about now, what Dave said before. We are immediately uneasy when nobody is saying anything. So in this group it's already better, but still there is this, oh, we cannot sit here 5 minutes without saying anything. Somebody has to jump up and say something because we are on transmission, you know. So just to notice that we have a difficulty to allow silence in a group.
It's called dead air, isn't it? You know, one of the things, so if you take it a bit further, one of the things about silence, some people are uneasy in silence. In a group of people, they're uneasy if nothing is being said, and nobody knows whether or not to say something completely random, you know, which will make everybody back away from them, or to fill the void with something completely profound, which will almost have the same reaction because it will make people move a little bit further away from them. The thing with in a selling environment or in a negotiation or even in an interview, one of the greatest ways of getting somebody to tell you more information is to say nothing, because they feel that they should explain it a little bit further. And so the thing with listening to people is that one of the greatest things that we can do is to give people a voice and the space and the context from which to speak their mind. And to do that, we have to realize one thing, that if you take the letters of the word listen, the L-I-S-T-E-N, and you rearrange them, it spells silent. And silent is what you should be when you're listening. But if you maintain that silence when somebody tells you something and you don't respond, they fill the void a little bit more by giving you more information about what they just said. And it's a very powerful tool, silence. And sometimes, depending upon the situation, it is more powerful than 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 words.
Yeah, I have something to say. In relationships, silence is not really very good. It can destruct relationships when you don't say anything.
And it can appear that you're not listening. I mean, it's interesting because, again, there's a listening fine line, because that's really very interesting, because you speak, right? You listen, you stop speaking, but then if you don't respond, somebody thinks you're not listening. So it's not that. So it's listening to when it's time to speak. That's not listen. That's really very interesting, isn't it?
And it's also interesting in that in coaching relationships, as we're working with our clients, we actually teach our clients not to be afraid of silence. Because if someone does throw a powerful question out there, if you allow for that space, like Dave was saying, give that space, often the learning or the aha comes in the few seconds of that silence. But our culture is so noise related and jump in and everything goes fast pace. But often giving that space But like you say, Marilyn, if the person knows that you're listening to them, then you allow for that space, as Dave says, and sometimes that's when a learning comes up or an aha because you gave it that space in the listening.
And the listening doesn't have to be verbal, right? Somebody knows you're listening just by your eyes and how you use your face and your expressions. And so, great points, great points. Margarita, you've got your hand up.
I can only show this. The blackness, the infinite void. We all need to go there to be conscious. And then we can conquer all the noises and blah, 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 and listen to what actually is behind that.
Mm-hmm.
Did I make my point?
Yeah, now I'm curious, when you're doing all those drawings, are you just sitting there doodling?
Instantly. This is not doodling, it's instant drawing.
Instant.
I pour my energy in here from all of you. Not necessarily that you have that. I'm thinking, I'm hearing from the internet, the fan of the fridge, the energetic interference from the military base near here, and the aeroplanes coming over, the cat scratching the door, wanting to get in or get out, to get in and get out again, and the mouse he brought in yesterday that's scurrying around, right? Like all of these kind of.
That's really cool. And last week I was at a conference with Lucetta, and there was a woman who was painting as the speaker was speaking. And that was also kind of like what you're doing right now. And she took in the vibration, the energy, the words, and she put it all in this beautiful canvas. So it's so interesting how we're all connecting in that regard. That's great.
I think I'm listening and expressing in the drawing. It doesn't necessarily need to be words.
Mm-hmm.
We can express with different things. We can write something. We could act on stage something that's not us, but it's a role that we do. We act out our archetypes. That's also a different expression. We can paint. We can do pottery. Whatever expression we have, we can also use our hands and our smiles and our hearts. Well.
What a playground.
I want to jump in.
Go ahead.
Marilyn, if you want, I do a little pitch here. If you want to learn it, Margarita is offering a course to do that, because it's really not just doodling. She begins to teach me, and it's really interesting. So if anybody is interested in doing that, connect with Margarita.
Thanks for doing that. So we're only going to have a few minutes left. So I just want to ask. Katrina, did you have anything to say closing?
My one quick thing I would say is that listening is a practice, and I feel like all of us are on our own journey doing it. The more that you can be tuned into how you want to listen that day, I think it really helps expand everything you see in the big picture. It really can be very enlightening in a lot of different ways. So practice is important.
And thank you for saying that, because we are on our own practices, and this is a microcosm, is that the word?
Mm-hmm.
Of how it's done. Everybody comes into it from someplace different, hears something, takes it somewhere, and that's how we learn, and that's our practice. And whatever comes up, we get to learn from each other. I mean, you've all said things in such a way, you've expressed it that I'm like, oh my God, I'm really busy this week because I've had all those experiences. So it's great. So yeah, and this is how we want to show the world that listening is dimensional and a hoot. It's a hoot. It's a hoot, right? It's so much more than just the conversations that we have. It's just so deep. So I want to thank you all for sharing all of that. And Lucetta, what about you? Any kind of closing comments from being here for the first time, or anything else that you want to add?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to thank you. I am honored to be a part of this, and it's been a fascinating conversation. I guess what I would add is just that listening is external and internal. And I love the thought of making it a practice to intentionally listen in both those ways, which I think is equally as important.
Well, maybe hopefully you'll come back.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, listening to your own heart, your own desires, your own passions, as well as listening to the external world.
Yes, absolutely. And hopefully you come back and, join us whenever you want. And because you'll be surprised at where we have come from and the things that have come up and the journey that we've each been privy to, both together and separately, because it's been really fascinating. And the people who come in and go out, and it's just been great to listen to where everybody has taken their listening. So it really is interesting. And I'd love for you to share about your book too, because I know that I don't know if we have enough time for that today, but maybe another week we can come together and share the work we're doing, because that is instrumental in the listening.
Okay, thank you. I would love to do that.
Yeah. So I think that would be a really great kind of a show, is to talk about how we've been driven to do what we're doing currently because of how we're listening, and why is our listening taking us there? Why do we think our listening is taking us there? So anybody else? Mark, Heidi?
Yeah. I thought she was going to talk. Katrina mentioned a way of listening to each other, and each of us being on our own journeys. And I'm thinking that, yes, we are on our own journeys, but we are at similar levels, so we can speak and listen to each other. But the people who are not in this show may not be at the level we are. They can be lower, less developed, perhaps less educated, whatever, or more, and we can't understand them. We can't listen to them. And those below, we cannot get through to them either. So this listening business, we have to listen for who our tribe is, so that we know who we can be open with, who we can share with. And that's taken a long time, and this is a great thing that the internet has done for us, that we can be together. I'm most grateful for that. Then there's the rest of the world. Another story.
And that's interesting, actually.
And I need to listen to our tango teacher. He is calling.
Okay, we have to say goodbye now. All right.
Bye. It's good to have you here. Dave, did you want to say something before we go?
Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
No, it's just a great show. Nice to meet everybody again. Glad you got in on the link. Yeah, I think we have to understand that hearing is passive. Hearing happens all the time, but listening is an activity. Or listening is an active sport, and it's something that we have to be proactive with. And it's a way of showing respect, and it's a way of showing that we're there with somebody. Other stuff is just like lift music, elevator music. It's just going on. But when we're with somebody, we need to be listening to them in a proactive way. It's an activity that we do, and we learn a lot more by listening than speaking.
And patience is really important. in listening. Patience for ourselves and patience for others. Because regardless, patience is the bridge, to hear ourselves and to hear others, no matter where. I mean, I have to have patience for myself because sometimes I think I'm listening to something myself is not listening to. Right? And vice
Well,
versa.
I'll just say on that, I hear you.
I'm like 2 or 10 people. I don't know. I'm like, Marilyn, do this. Oh no, don't do this. Oh, should I do this? Or and then
Well,
there's
only
the
allowed 8
spiritual
people on
Marilyn.
this hangout. It only takes 8 people.
Yeah, I mean, I have to have patience with all of those parts of myself, and really, right? It's Katrina, right?
Yeah, I get it. I totally understand that. That's why I'm laughing so hard. I'm like, yep, get that.
Somebody said to me once, "Are you going on holiday on your own? Won't you be bored?" I said, "No, I'll be with me."
Yeah, I mean, really. Margarita, what about you? Final words?
Final word is this: listen to the void, the silence between your thoughts, and even listen to the silence in other people when they are speaking, listening between the words.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the end of our show today. Everybody can hang out just for a minute while I stop the show. But everybody that's been listening and joining us, whether again live or on the replay, you can always connect with each and every one of us. We'd love to have you. And if you're so inclined to join us in the show, please let me know. Would love to have you in there as well. So have a wonderful listening week. Bye.
Thank you.